Linjen är bra. Kalla tidigt. Gärna hålla igång. Japp, japp, japp. Okej så.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the 2020 edition of the Baden Masters. So I think we'll probably have a lot of people tuning in for our highlighted game today. That is Team Edin from Sweden versus Team Cruz from Switzerland. So two real giants of the game here. We've got the Olympic silver medalists in Niklas Edin's team versus the Olympic bronze medalists with Peter Cruz. So the restaurant area is pretty busy with spectators as well. There's a lot of other interesting games out there too. So we're going to be concentrating here on Edin versus Cruz. So we're in the situation where Peter Cruz's team actually has to win this game. They've not had it all their own way this weekend, so they have to win this game to stay in the competition. So this is always a pretty exciting game, and I think we're going to get some fireworks today. I think we can always expect some good quality stuff from both of these teams. So it looks like we've got a lot of folks in the chat already, so shout out to everyone. Hello Megan, greetings to US. I think it seems like a lot of the clubs are not able to open or have curling yet, so hopefully we can be your curling buddies if you're not able to go to the club yet. And Glenn says, let's go. So yeah, I think everyone's looking forward to this game. It's been a pretty exciting competition so far. So at the moment, Edin is top of their group, but they haven't had it all their own way either. They had a loss yesterday to young team from Switzerland, Team Klossner, although they've certainly made up for that by winning the rest of their games. And apparently, if you're familiar with Team Edin, then they can typically be a little bit slow to start at an 8 o'clock in the morning game, and then they race through the draw after that. So yeah, they had a surprise loss to the young Klossner team from Switzerland, who'll be very proud of themselves. But then they made up for that and won the rest of their games. Now, Peter Cruz's team, they've had a couple of losses, so they also lost their first game to the young Muskatewitz team from Germany.
Yep, tight.
And they lost another game. I'm just trying to call up that result.
Tight.
They are now third in the group, so this is Group A that we're looking at here. And Edin's team is top with 8 points. The Muskatewitz German outfit, they are second, also with 8 points. And Cruz is currently in third place, so Team Klossner, that had that big win over Team Edin yesterday morning, they are also on 6 points, only behind Peter Cruz because of the last shot draw. So a lot on the line here for Peter Cruz's team. Team Klossner will definitely have their tails up, having had that big win yesterday. So we'll be keeping an eye on that as well. So the Muskatewitz German team, they're playing on the sheet next door to our featured game here. You can see them just on the right of the screen. So we'll be keeping an eye on their scores as well. So they'll still be looking for a win just to cement their place in the quarterfinal later this evening. So Glenn has correctly noticed that Peter Cruz seems to be playing with 3 and we are missing Valentin Tanner. So Glenn, I am wondering where he is the same as you guys are. I will try and find out for you, because that's at this level, that is a tough job playing with 3. Look, yeah, they're trying to set up an end, and Edin's team, they don't waste any time with just removing shots from play. That's really their specialty. So Cruz's team are going to find it tough out there if they have to play with 3. But they're champions, you know, they know what they're doing. So, welcome back, Kent. Kent was joining us yesterday in New Jersey. Welcome, Maya. Nice to see you again. Maya asks if I have a Twitter. I don't, actually. I think I just Twitter out loud in 280 characters or less. And Michaela asks how cold it is at the rink. Niklas made a comment about the cold at the start of the Krause game. Again, I will try to find that out for you, Michaela. We're keeping a very strict distance between the athletes and everyone else. So the athletes they have their area on the ice and in the locker room and, on the lower level, basically. And all the rest of us, we're really sticking to upstairs here in the restaurant and the club area, just for everybody's safety, particularly the athletes. We really appreciate all of the athletes travelling and putting themselves out there when we're still in a bit of a strange situation, health and safety-wise. So yeah, we're really maintaining a strict distance. So I haven't been down on the ice, but I will try to find that out. So we have some interesting questions to investigate already. So looking back to what's going on in our first end of our featured game here. This is a real clash of the Titans with Niklas Edin's team coming from Sweden. So we say thank you to them for travelling, and Peter de Cruz from Geneva Rink, so not so far away, but also champions many times over for many different competitions. So this is always an exciting game, and this is very typical for these two teams. Both of them just start as they mean to continue. They put stones in play. They are not afraid to take the game right from the first stone. Like I said, the Cruz team not only seems to be missing Valentin Tanner, so I think they will certainly feel the lack of his presence, but they are also in the position where they've had 2 losses already this weekend. So they really have to win this game. So if there's a must-win game that I might not look forward to, it's probably trying to get a point off Niklas Edin's team. But yeah, de Cruz, they had a 6-4 loss to the German Muskatewitz team yesterday morning. And busy day, it was their 4th game yesterday evening, and they had a 2nd loss to the young Iseli team from Gladys Club, also here in Switzerland. So maybe that was just some tired shots by the last draw of yesterday evening. So yes, they're on 2 wins and 2 losses. And if they don't win here, they're relying on other results to get them through. So this is a bit of a must-win for the de Cruz outfit. I think Edin is qualified already, although he also wants to win, just to cement that first place and the top of the competition. And what's Team Edin, what's their path been like to get here? So again, as we said, they've had a loss as well this weekend. There have been a few surprise results already. So they had a close game yesterday morning, losing 6-5 in the last end to the young Klossner team from Switzerland. But then they had wins over Muskatewitz, Iseli, Gempeler, and the Krause team from Denmark yesterday. No, that's this morning. So yeah, they had a bit of a difficult start, but they really hit their stride now. So in this game there, Team Edin is playing Redstones, and Team de Cruz from Switzerland is playing yellow. So Tito Road, I hope I pronounced that properly, says, doesn't the team normally have an extra team member if someone gets sick or injured or so? And typically, yes, that's allowed for sure. I'm not sure who is the alternate for de Cruz team this season. I think last season it was Claudio Petz.
Ja, nej,
And
men
I think
jag gillar den där.
I think he may play from Baden Club
Kant 8 eller
from
lite
memory.
mer. Ja, kant 8 är nog bra.
But yeah, I will try and find out. Maybe it was a last minute thing, last minute injury or illness or so. But yeah, they will surely miss Valentin Tanner.
Han sa 12-7 den sista. Han var bak 12 nästan.
Very reliable lead thrower. He and Peter de Cruz have played together for a long, long time, I think, since they were junior players.
Ja.
So the two of them very familiar with each other's game, and they will definitely be missing him.
Både han var ju hårda men ändå curla över. Så det ser ut att finnas rätt friskt med curlen då. Ja. Man känner som den blev satt kant 8 ungefär, men tar mer än så då blir det ett helt nytt spår också.
Both these teams have won this competition before. So Edin's team, they have won this competition in 2017 and also in 2015. And the de Cruz team, they won this competition in 2016. So it would take me probably quite a long time to list all of these teams' achievements, but yeah, suffice to say we've got the Olympic silver medalists against the Olympic bronze medalists, with many national titles and world curling tour successes between them.
Okay. Sit då.
Then we have another question here in the chat, so it's great that everybody's joining in. Do feel free to either send us questions or just say hi or send us some comments. I'm afraid I can't read your name. I'm not sure if that's a fault of our keyboard here, but the little symbol says, why did de Cruz not join the national championships? So that was last weekend, I believe, was the Swiss national championships, also here in Baden. So again, I will try to find that out for you. I'm not sure from my head. So I can answer at least one of our questions so far. So last weekend, it wasn't the national championships, it was the Swiss Cup. So that's, as the name implies, simply a cup competition, a one-off. So you're right, there were most of the top Swiss teams were here, but de Cruz team was not. But that doesn't affect the actual national championship. So hope that helps.
Gadda hålet, hur lätt är den här dragningen?
So not only will Peter de Cruz's team be missing Valentin Tanner setting up the ends for them, as he does so nicely every time, but as we also saw in one of the games yesterday, having only one sweeper at this level, this can make a big difference. So the shot placement is really important at this level. A couple centimetres here or there can make a big difference, and your sweepers can certainly help move a stone a few centimetres either for line or for length. So it's going to be some tired bodies out there, particularly in the de Cruz rink, I think. Right, here in this first end, loads of stones in play, which is what we expect from both these teams. Both play really aggressively, very comfortable having stones in play. So it looks like yellow, that's de Cruz, they are line one and they have last shot. It's quite a challenge maybe to get a second shot from there. You can see there are two red counters, there's one just behind that yellow, and there's not an easy way in there. So this is Edin's last shot, and I suspect he's probably just going to block up that hole just to make life difficult for Benoit Schwartz to try to get a second counter closer than that red, which he would have to beat. Yep, perfectly done. So there's no way through now. We can see, look at that, that's the Great Wall of China approach. There's a lot of granite out there, so they're having to say, how are we getting a second shot from this? So not only do they have to find a way to get a yellow stone into the rings, they also have to get it into the 4-foot circle. Yep, exactly where Peter is tapping his brush. So they need to try to beat. So I think they may be trying to spring that right-hand yellow onto the left yellow. I must admit, I can't quite see the angles here, but these guys do this all the time. I'm sure they have checked all the angles. No problem for Benoit Schwartz. He's looked at much more difficult shots than this, I'm sure. So he is going for that close yellow. Doesn't quite get the angle right. That was a very difficult shot. Looked like he was pretty nice for weight. So one shot scored there to Swiss. So I can answer a second question. The temperature in the ice rink is about 5 to 5.5 degrees Celsius. And for our metrically challenged, I'm just going to convert that for you. So that is pretty cold, I must say. So that's 41 Fahrenheit. So it's 5 to 5.5 Celsius, which is 41 Fahrenheit. So I think it is pretty cold out there. The weather has changed a little bit outside here.
Heavy start.
It was pretty warm the past couple of weeks, but it's a bit cooler and wetter outside, so that always affects the ice as well. I'm not an ice person, so I don't know the full ins and outs of making ice, but I do know that the outside weather, the outside temperature certainly has an effect. So I think our ice team have been working really hard to keep the ice nice and fast, really consistent. So again, pretty traditional start for the team who does not have last stone. Placing a guard. So this will be a slightly new experience for Peter de Cruz. So normally the team lineup would be Benoit Schwartz plays fourth, Sven Mikkel plays third, Peter de Cruz plays second, and Valentin Tanner plays lead. And Valentin is currently missing in action. So while we find out what's the story there, so what will happen is Peter de Cruz will play the first 3 stones, Sven Mikkel will play the next 3 stones, and Benny Schwartz will play still 2 stones. So whoever throws fourth, they still only play 2 stones. If you're down to 3 players in any situation, also at the club, then that's how that works. So your fourth player still only has 2 stones. They don't get 3 stones, unfortunately. So yeah, this is a slightly unusual title there that we saw, Peter de Cruz at lead. So this is a challenge for him. He's not used to setting up the end in this way, but they're champions. They'll stick to their task. But yeah, normally this would be Valentin Tanner's job. Although it looks like Peter de Cruz is pretty reliable there as well. So yep, couldn't have placed that much better. So nice job, Peter de Cruz. Allows himself a little smile. Team Edin at full strength with all 4 of their regular players. So that we're looking at Christopher Sundgren, who's their normal lead.
Bra linje. Bra linje, bra linje. Curla mycket nu. Japp. Okej, lås upp garden här så kan vi ta båda. 13-7, 14-9 där på.
So now we're on the 3rd stone. So this is more Peter de Cruz's normal territory. But you can see this will affect their not strategy, but this will affect a little bit their team communication as well. So Edin's team has the traditional lineup where Niklas Edin, he's the skip of the team, so he's the one holding the brush, doing the strategy, guiding the driving the game, and he also throws 4th stone. So that's a typical setup, but these days we see a bit more creativity with the lineup, so it's not always the person who is strongest at throwing 4th is also the strongest person to skip. And indeed Peter de Cruz, throwing right now, he is the skip of this team, and he also throws 2nd stones. So throwing that extra stone at the beginning means Benoit Schwartz, the vice skip, he's looking at slightly different stones than he normally does. So again, not only are they missing Valentin for setting up the end, and he's a very powerful sweeper, but it's maybe a little bit more difficult for Peter and Benoit to talk strategy as well. But great stones there from Valentin's substitute Peter de Cruz. So now we get a look at Swedish second Rasmus Branno. So he's very used to this kind of shot. I wouldn't be surprised if he runs that one out. Not quite. But yeah, that's a really typical shot you'll see from the Edin rink. They're not afraid to take a run at all those guards up front. So now we're looking at normal third player for Peter de Cruz. This is Sven Michael. It's not Oscar Eriksson. We'll see him shortly. So Sven is also in a unusual position. Normally he throws stones 5 and 6, but because they're playing with 3, then he's throwing stones 4, 5 and 6, so it's a little bit unfamiliar territory for him as well. But that looks like a nice effort. Edin having a think about what's best to do here. You'll really see Edin's team, they're not afraid to take on some really big shots, some very difficult angles, difficult doubles, raised doubles, etc. So they've really got a lot of power in their arsenal, Niklas Edin's team. Michaela says that she saw on Twitter yesterday that there was a picture of Valentin falling out in the ice yesterday, so that would certainly explain if he had an injury there. So let's hope that's either not the case or not serious. That would certainly explain why de Cruz's team was maybe getting a bit tired towards yesterday evening if they've had to play a couple of games with 3 players. So what's going on in this end? Let's get back to our featured game. So de Cruz picked up 1 in the first end. So hammer is with Niklas Edin. So as we know, if you have the hammer, if you have last shot, you quite like to keep the middle free so that you've got a clearer path for your last shot. So Edin playing red stones. They're quite happy. This is a nice shot. I think it just rolls a wee bit too far though. No, he's trying to encourage it back in again with a little bit of sweeping, but Peter de Cruz, they will be happy to play towards the middle and make Edin's life a bit more difficult. So we're looking at the split time here, and the split time is how long the stone takes to travel between the 2 hog lines. So the hog lines are the thick horizontal lines. Everybody's staying away from this one. Everybody thinks that's a bit too high, and indeed a split time of 12.7. That's at this level, on this nice ice, yeah, that's a bit too fast for a T-line. So you'll see the teams timing that. They'll get their stopwatch, not only for their stones, but often for the opposition stones as well. You'll see the teams timing how long the stones take to go between the 2 hog lines. And the reason they do that is to get a good understanding of how fast the ice is running. So yeah, a typical T-line would be maybe 13.5 or 14 seconds on this nice competition ice. So let's see if Oscar Eriksson, the Swedish third, let's see if he's got a good feel for it. I think our stopwatch ran on a bit there. This can happen too, but yeah, that's a better effort. So they may have been timing that split, so between the 2 hog lines, to understand what kind of time is needed for a tee line. And you'll also hear teams talking about often if they want to play a faster stone, so a takeout shot, they will talk about, say, playing a 10-second shot, and what they mean is a stone that takes 10 seconds to go between the two hog lines. You can see that that would be much faster than the stones we've just seen from Sven and from Oskar. So Sven Mikkel's come up for a powwow with Peter de Cruz. I think this is stone number 6. Yeah, this is Sven Mikkel's. Well, it's his third stone, but yeah, this is this is stone number 6. So they will be wary, the Swiss team, of letting these Swedish counters build up. We know that the Swedes have got some big shots, and if you give them a chance at a double or even a triple, the Swedes can take that very easily. So they will be wary of these the Swedish counters, the red shots. They'll be wary of those building up. But they are lying shot just now, the Swiss, that yellow that's just in front of Niklas Edin as we're looking. So they may just want to consolidate that again, put some stones out front, and at least try to make Niklas Edin's life a bit more difficult. This looks pretty good. Really nice shot there from Sven Mikkel. There wasn't much space to squeeze one in there, and his line and weight was just perfect. So Sweden with last stone. There are 4 shots to come. 5 shots to come. So there's one more for Oskar Eriksson from Sweden. So he's come up to have a look. Have a think about it. And then 4th stones from both teams. So they're asking themselves, how do we get 2 from here?
Kan ju spela något på den där rackaren också bara för att öppna upp, men det är känsligt. Nej, men jag håller med, det här känns ju... Nej, men det känns ju som det bästa, enklaste slaget att få skottet, och då ligger det ju faktiskt ganska bra. Ja, det tror jag. Ja, exakt.
So John in the chat says he would like to see Chelsea Carey in this tournament. The Canadian team. He says she has the heart of a champion, so I'm sure everybody would agree with you there, John. I think this is only a men's competition. So there are some competitions where men's and ladies teams are welcome. Not quite at this level, but there are some competitions where both genders are welcome. But I'm sure we'll see Team KC in action again soon.
Curlar liksom jämnt och fint som den borde. Känns normal bäst. Du kan ju spela lite mindre också. Jag såg ju Rasmus 11 där, men... Ja.
Kjell Alström asks about, is there any signs of teams changing which games they take part in during COVID? So are, say, the European teams not going to play in Canada and vice versa and so on? So yes, that's a good point there, and indeed this tournament has been affected by the health and safety restrictions. So several teams that intended to come, that were ready to play, they have had to stay home actually because of COVID restrictions. Let's just take a look at this shot. There we are. Yeah, Mika Brau, perfect angles. As we expect from Oskar Eriksson, so that's really nicely placed now. It's almost completely behind the cover. Yeah, it could be a bit difficult to remove that red. But yeah, COVID restrictions. that is affecting this tournament as well. So we had several teams from Scotland and from Norway who intended to be here. They wanted to be here, but finally had to cancel because it's just not appropriate to travel for them. So maybe they're tuning in just to see how everyone else is getting on. I know the teams here are certainly happy to be on ice, but we can say hello from everyone at the competition, from Hans-Jörg and Christian and all the competition committee. So we can say hi to the teams that we're missing. That's Team Bryce from Scotland, Team Mowat from Scotland, Team Patterson from Scotland, Team Ramsfeld from Norway, Team Ulsrud from Norway, Team Valstad from Norway, and Team White from Scotland. So you can see quite a few teams that hoped to be here, that of course everybody was looking forward to seeing here, and they didn't make it after all because Switzerland is actually the problem for them. So they could travel here, but because Switzerland, the number of cases of COVID was a little bit higher than Scotland and Norway are happy with, then those teams would have to quarantine when they go home again. So they had to make the difficult decision not to come after all. So we're all sad you're not here, guys. So hope you're all safe and trying to get some curling in at home instead. So I just got a message regarding Valentin Tanner. So indeed he's not playing this game, and he is actually sitting on the bench because he does have an injury. So you could be right, Michaela, that happened yesterday. If he had to fall on the ice, that's never nice. So yeah, he's sitting on the bench. He's here, but yeah, it seems like he's not feeling fit to play. So that's a big loss for not only Peter de Cruz's team, but for the game and the tournament as well. That's always a shame if a team has to play with 3 players. So yeah, it's a good question, Kjell, and we mentioned at the start as well that we're maintaining a strict distance or a strict separation between the athletes and everyone else. So the athletes have the ice hall and the locker rooms and so on, and everyone else is staying upstairs in the club area. So just really trying to keep the players safe. We really appreciate everyone traveling, especially the foreign teams. So really just trying to keep everyone safe. There's hand sanitizers all over, and one-way system for entry and exit at the club. As far as the teams going over to Canada or coming across from Canada to play in Europe, I guess it would be as complicated, if not more, to go over the Atlantic for competitions at the moment. So I can't see that happening. We have had Canadian teams at this competition in years past, and they've won this competition as well. So I don't think any of the teams were planning to travel this year, but that could also be due to the health situation. But yeah, I don't know too many teams who are expecting to cross the Atlantic, let's say. Yeah, and it sounded like people in the chat yesterday were saying that a handful of clubs are maybe allowed to open in Canada and a handful of clubs in the US. It really depends which area you're in. If your area is got health and safety under control, or if there are still outbreaks of virus. So it's really just very hard for anyone to plan any activities, I think, never mind curling, big curling competitions. So we really appreciate everyone's efforts, including our teams from Norway and Scotland who intended to travel but could not. And we really appreciate all of our teams that have made the effort to travel here.
Känns okej ändå, känns okej. Bra linje. Gärna curla. Curla. Gärna curla. Peut-être c'est un poil trop large. Il se bloque peut-être.
We've had quite a few guests joining us from Canada and from US because I think there's very little curling. As we said, just a handful of clubs are allowed to open, so we've had a lot of our curling friends from Canada and US joining in. So if we can be your curling buddies, then we're certainly delighted to have you join us. You can come join us here in Baden Club, and maybe that's a little bit of a curling fix while we're all in this tough situation. And I feel like we're ignoring our featured game a little bit, which we shouldn't be, because it's always a pleasure to watch Niklas Edin's team against Peter de Cruz. So the situation we have at the moment, those two red stones, those are Swedish stones. Sweden has last shot. So it looks like we've got one stone to come for both teams. So one Swiss stone about to come, and then last shot from Niklas Edin. So remember, when we don't have hammer, we're trying to limit the opposition. Those two stones are in quite a nice position. Sven's gone down to have a look from the other end. That can certainly be helpful when there's a lot of stones in play, as there is here. So this is a gutsy call. I think he's trying to outdraw both of those reds. I think he's trying to squeeze through that little narrow gap there on the clockwise handle, just between the centre yellow and the red above that as we're looking. So this is a gutsy call. Sweden are already lying 2. Always has that same inscrutable expression, does Benny Schwartz. Line looks pretty nice. Sven's a big strong sweeper even by himself. Oh, unlucky. Unlucky Switzerland. That was a great effort from Schwartz. So Sweden has a relatively straightforward shot to make 3 by the look of it.
Ja, den här är svår förresten, jag måste insida där. Ja. Kant 8.
So this is a nice idea. He's just seen Benoit Schwartz play that line, so he knows that curl is there. And he's even got a little bit of backing, so if he puts a little bit too much beans on this shot, then Benoit Schwartz's yellow stone that we can see just behind the blue 4-foot circle, that will catch Edin's last shot here. So this is a sensible idea. Well, they're still maybe not quite sure about it, still having a bit of a discussion. The other option, of course, is to play the other handle, the counterclockwise handle. There's certainly more space there, but there's a higher risk that he wouldn't actually count 3 because he needs to outcount that those 2 yellows at the back of the 4-foot. So that really familiar flat to the ice style of Niklas Edin.
Bra linje, håll igång om du vill. Bra linje. Tight. Bara fart. Bara
You can
fart.
see got 2 strong Swedish sweepers there. He doesn't even need the backing, I don't think.
Nice.
Lovely shot there from Niklas Edin. So a big 3 for Sweden. So, as we've been discussing, it can be difficult to generate 2 at this level. Even when you have last shot, you really need a mistake from your opposition. So to generate 3 is a big deal. So they'll be very pleased with that, the Swedes. So we can just have a quick look at the teams. So those are the right photos. I'm sure they're very recognizable to our viewers. So on the left, we've got the team Edin from Sweden. So playing fourth, and skip of the team is Niklas Edin, playing third, and vice skip Oskar Eriksson, playing two is Rasmus Franno, and lead is Christopher Sundgren. And then on the right, that is team Peter de Cruz, the Swiss team, even though it says it's Joel Retornaz's team. And I'm not quite sure what's happening. We've maybe fallen into a curling vortex where all the graphics are stuck on the screen. Sorry about that. We'll try and fix that. There we are. As soon as that's gone. But yeah, so the starting lineup for the Peter de Cruz team was Benoit Schwartz plays fourth, Sven Michael plays third, Peter de Cruz plays second and skips the team, and typically Valentin Tanner would play lead, but it sounds like Valentin's had an injury, so we hope that's not serious and wish him well. So their lineup is today is Benoit Schwartz is playing fourth stones, so he plays stones 7 and 8. Sven Michael will play stones 4, 5 and 6, and Peter de Cruz is playing stones 1, 2 and 3. So Valentin must be pretty happy with how nicely Peter de Cruz is filling in for him. That's another great shot from the Swiss skip there. So I hope we didn't give anyone a headache with the curling vortex there, but it seems like we're back to the game now. So now that they scored that big 3, oh, there we are. There's another example of what happens. It looks like one of the Swedish sweepers just touched that yellow stone either with a brush or with a foot as they were sweeping the red stones. And what happens in that situation is the Swedish player says, Switzerland, I touched that stone, and Switzerland put it back where they think it was before it had been moved. So it looks like it would be 1 centimetre or something in that case, but sometimes people can fall over a stone and it really squirts out into the next rink. So the process is the player who touched the stone, if it's not so obvious as falling over and kicking it out of play, you can depend on your opposition to say, I touched that stone. They will own up themselves, and then the opposition, they're entitled to put the stone back wherever they thought it was. And that's for any stationary stone. So that stone happens to be a Swiss stone, but that's for any stationary stone. If the opposition accidentally touches a stationary stone, they will tell the other team, and the other team will put it back where they think it was. Rules are different for the running stone, but hopefully we won't need to encounter that. Then to my curling buddy Michaela's point, then that would be a burned rock, but at this level that would be very unusual. So we're in the third end of this 8-end round robin game. This is the last round of the round robin here at the Baden Masters. It's a clash of the Titans with Team Edin from Sweden and Team de Cruz from Switzerland, two of the biggest names in curling. Unfortunately, Team de Cruz is without Valentin Tanner. He had it sounds like he had an injury after a fall in the ice yesterday, so that's why they're playing with 3. So we're in the third end here. Sweden 3-1 up. They picked up a big 3 there in that second end. So now the Swiss are going to play aggressive shots. So now the Swiss want to keep shots in play so that they can try and pick up another 2. So yeah, Peter de Cruz again doing a perfect job of being deputy for Valentin Tanner in setting up the end. So you might think that shot's pretty safe behind there, and at club level I would agree with you. It's pretty nicely buried there, that shot that Peter de Cruz just played. But that doesn't faze Team Edin either. It seems to be he's talking about playing hack weight, so that would be a stone fast enough to land at the hacks that you can see the 2 little black hacks behind us. Or he might just go for the raise takeout, so playing that front yellow guard onto the yellow in the house there. They're perfectly capable of that as well. Or he might just remove this guard. So they're +2. So they're pretty happy with how this is going. This is the only shot that is a danger to them just now, is that guard. So this makes sense. Let's just remove that. That's a straightforward shot there for Rasmus Vranna. And the Swiss are going to keep with the aggressive shots and try and put it back. Generating points against a big hitting team like Edin, it's always an uphill battle. But this Swiss team, they've played Edin's team many times. They won't be intimidated. This looks pretty nice from Sven Michael. Nice again. And you can see how important it is. These shots have to be perfect at this level. So if that really nice shot there from Sven Michael, if that was too far closer to the hog line, Sweden would have enough space to draw around and tap out the yellow with a hack weight. And if it was too close, he'll just take the double takeout. I think he might even fancy the double takeout here. He's not far off. Oh. Peter de Cruz getting out of the way quick enough. Everyone has a laugh at nearly crashing into each other when the stones are spraying everywhere. So that was a really nice shot, lovely double takeout. You can see it again here. You can see Nicolas trying to catch that yellow stone that doesn't go into someone else's game. Peter de Cruz trying to get out of the way of the other stone. This is a typical kind of scene in a Edin game, I would say. So very nice shot there from Rasmus Vranna again. But Swiss don't mind too much. They've still got that red stone out front. It doesn't matter to them if it's a red or a yellow. So that's quite a nice result, but it's just run a little bit heavy. So they're having the same discussion again, Edin's team. You could chase that stone in and just, play a little bit heavier and push it through. So it's a little bit further away from that guard stone compared with his the previous shot. So that double take is a wee bit tougher. So it looks like they're going to follow that Swiss stone and just try and cancel it out. If they play the same stone, they're going to land in front of it, and that will cancel that Swiss stone out. So while we watch Oscar Eriksson trying to follow that Swiss stone, there's been a couple of questions in the chat about the European Championships. So this is a good question. Currently, the European Championships are scheduled for I think it's 21st of November for a week in Lillehammer in Norway. Now at the moment, lovely shot there from Oscar Eriksson. Again, pretty much inch perfect. Now for the European Championships, the same problem that exists at the moment for travel in and out of Norway exists the other way round for all of us who would want to go to Norway for the European. So Norway has quite strict travel regulations on who's allowed in and out, and for sure Switzerland is on the naughty list. So if we Swissies want to go, we would have to quarantine in Norway for 2 weeks before we would be allowed to do normal activities, let's say. So a nice shot there again from Sven. Good job. You can see that shot's now on the tee line, so it gets a little bit harder to follow the stone in and automatically be shot, but there's still space for Edin to do that. So yeah, there are several countries in that situation. So Switzerland would currently have to quarantine for 2 weeks on arrival in Norway. Spain are in the same situation. Germany, I think Italy. Certainly, I would say around 50% of the countries that are entered for the Europeans would currently have to quarantine for 2 weeks in Norway. So I'm really not sure what that will look like.
Samma tap som han gjorde, bara tappa löst en sten så att våran fryser deras bakåt.
I'm sure most of the teams, it's still quite a minority sport, you know, where most people still have to have a job and have other responsibilities. So I'm not sure there are too many teams who could set off 2 weeks early, meet the quarantine requirement, and then take part in a European Championship. So I'm supposed to be playing there with the English ladies team, so shout out to my girls in England. And we're not quite sure what that looks like at the moment. So Edin's just going to continue with this line. Played a few shots on this counterclockwise draw to the wings. So important is that they need to hold this line. If this overcurls a bit, it won't be shot. Yep, he's got it perfectly again. So Team Edin really just cancelling out these wingers from Switzerland that makes Switzerland's life a bit more difficult to get these shots into play. So what they're discussing now is if they would hit that front red, and just as Peter de Cruz is indicating, the yellow will squirt back onto the other red. The back yellow will be lost, but that middle yellow will still be in play, and depending on where the red goes, then you may end up with a nice result. You may be able to get that second shot for yellow and give yourself a chance at getting a 2 with your last shot. So that's probably what they're discussing, is there a way to squirt that yellow back and keep it in play and somehow remove the red? So they're definitely following that same line. So the Swiss are really working hard to try and give themselves a chance to pick up 2 points here with last shot. They don't really want to give hammer back to Sweden and only pick up 1. So that's why they're focusing on attacking over here in the wing. So there we're seeing the difference of just having 1 sweeper. Sven Mikkel's a really strong sweeper, but it's just him on his own. So that weight was lovely. And Peter de Cruz realizing that it was going to anyway crash the guard, he decided to go for plan B. So we've got that one in play. So it looks like it will be a difficult chance for a 2. And Sweden, of course, are going to remove that yellow. This is Sweden's last shot. So what they're really doing is discussing where they want their shooter to go. It's a given that they want to remove that yellow right close to the centre. And what they're discussing is, I think, is there a possibility to even make a double takeout? So the centre yellow that we can see, and then that yellow that's currently snuggled in on the left of the screen as we look at it. And that would leave themselves lying 3, and that would put a lot of pressure on Benoit Schwartz for a last shot. But first things first, that yellow has to go. But that's how high level these teams are. So they all know that that centre yellow has to go, and then they spend most of their discussion talking about where this red shooter that's on its way, where do they want that to go. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Sounds like he's maybe touched out a bit. But that's fine. The point was to remove the yellow. So now Swiss is looking at this again. Is there any possibility they can get a 2 from here? So again, it's a pretty easy shot for 1. For someone of Benoit Schwartz's quality, it would be pretty straightforward for him to just draw to that open 4 foot there. There's no guards that he has to get around. So for someone of his quality, it's a pretty straightforward shot to pick up 1 point here. Now the reason they're spending so much time discussing is because they would really rather try to pick up 2 points. So they're looking at all the angles here to see if they can squirt that red out somehow. We know that that yellow that's in the middle of the 2 reds, I think that would stay, I think that would stay in play. But the problem is that front red, how would we make that one go away? So they're having a good look at it. I think Edin's even having a look at it for them, just to see if he thinks there's an angle there.
Even half on the inside is fine.
You can see a lot of friendly chat in this game. These teams know each other very well. And both of them are happy to see good curling. If this is a lovely shot, Edin will congratulate them. So it looks like they've decided the angle's just not there. So there isn't a way to try to wiggle those shots around and end up with 2 yellow. They looked really, all the angles, but I don't think they can find a way. I just don't think that front red, they could move it far enough to leave themselves lying 2 at the end of it. So it looks like Benny Schwartz is just going to cover the middle instead. So he has to get his weight just right here. There's no stones for him to sit on. There's no backing to catch a stone. And he's jumped up to help Sven Mikkel, so they've got 2 sweepers if needed. So I don't think it needs any help. I think, yeah, Eriksson also says no, that's stopping nicely. So really good shot under pressure from Benoit Schwartz.
Nice draw.
He's a cool head on his shoulders. So we can see how hard Switzerland were working to try and make 2 points in that end, and how difficult it was. The Swedish team kept cancelling those attempts out, and not always with the big hits either, so that's a nice end to look at, that we don't always sort out problems, or if counters are building up, we don't always throw up the big weight and just get rid of everything. We can do it by playing a more delicate way and following those shots in. So Sweden will be happy with that end. The Swiss really didn't have a shot for 2 and just took the simple shot for 1 in the end. And now Sweden have last shot back again. I have an idea. Switzerland are going to have to play this aggressive game for the next 5 ends. So again, yeah, nice job from Peter de Cruz setting up that centre guard. You can see Rasmus Franno making sure that Christopher Sundgren has the exact shot he wants. So all of those stones have a number on them, 1 to 8. And typically at club level, your first player would play 1 and 2, your second player 3 and 4, etc. At this level, there can be small differences in the stones. So oftentimes the players, when they're having a practice, then they'll choose whichever stones are the closest, behave the most similarly. So that's why you would have seen Rasmus Franna there making sure that he's got the correct number of stone for Christopher Sundgren to throw. And we can see that that was worth it, because that ended up in a very nice shot as usual. So all stones are not quite the same at this level. And all of these players will make sure they throw the same 2, or in a couple of cases 3 stones. They will throw them in the same, they'll throw the same 2 stones in the same order every single end. So yes, that is Peter de Cruz, who's throwing lead and half of second for the Swiss team today. Doing an excellent job of getting these guards up front.
Bra linje. Gärna hålla igång lite. Bra linje. Bra linje. Den känns lugn för faktiskt köla lite. Ja, behöver köla lite, men nu kommer den. Oskars, alltid Oskar.
So there were a couple of things Niklas Edin could do here. So they've thrown up that corner guard, the red one you can see on the right. He could have put a stone round there. Or he could do this. So he's kind of calling Switzerland's bluff a bit. Switzerland might expect him to play shots to the wings, which would be typical when you've got last shot. But Edin is +1 and they have last stone. So even if they just pick up 1, that's not a disaster for them. And they want to stop Switzerland building too many stones in the centre. So they're thinking, well, if we get to the middle first, if we put a stone up towards the centre, that makes Switzerland's job to get to the centre that bit harder. But this looks like a lovely effort. That's a pretty nice shot. I just wanted it to curl a wee fraction more, but that was a pretty good result. Now, we might look at that and say, hang on, the red's still closest to the middle there. Why is that a nice shot? But that's because, of course, the red is now behind C. So even though the red's still closer, that yellow shot is in the front rings. And that's a more dangerous shot now, so they can play on that red. Sorry, they can play on that yellow, having moved the red off the centre. It looks like they're not interested in leaving any of these shots hanging around. Big screamer coming from Rasmus Branna. He's moved one of those centre guards from Peter de Cruz, but it could be an opportunity now for Switzerland to start building up stones in the centre there. Again, you can see why it's so important to have separation of those centre guards. So one was pretty close to the hog line and one was pretty close to the house. Because you can see how strong the Swedish team is with removing those stones. If you put them a bit too close together, they'll remove them all day. So that's curled way too much. And that's a bit of a mistake there from Sven. I think his weight was good for what was asked. He was trying to bump up to that red just next to Edin's feet there and just leave themselves line 2. But yeah, they've kind of opened out the centre now. That's not such a nice result. So if you're just joining us, we're in the 4th end of this final round robin match in the Baden Masters 2020. We're watching team Niklas Edin from Sweden versus team Peter de Cruz from Switzerland, two real heavyweights of the game. De Cruz's team, as you can see there, is a wee bit lighter. Valentin Tanner had an injury after a fall in the ice yesterday, so he's sitting on the bench watching this game, so we hope that's not serious. So De Cruz's life is a wee bit tougher today, but not for Sven Mikkel. He's comfortable with that double takeout. They don't have last shot, Switzerland, so they don't want to leave Swedish counters lying around. So really tidy double take out here.
Så länge du får träff på den först så det
Great
finns
shots
nästan
there,
ingen
Mikael.
träff som går clean över. Och du kommer alltid få en nudd i alla fall. Tunn halv så ska det vara dubbel av.
Swiss don't have last stone and they're one behind, so they don't want to this game to start running away from them a bit. And at this level, getting 2 or so points behind, that can be a mountain to climb, because you can see how accurate all of these teams are.
Hårt! Jag ska följa med röd ner om du vill. Ja då, det är bra.
So Edin also mindful that the Swiss will be trying to play aggressive. So he's just trying to remove a bit of that cover out front. Sweden doesn't need to score this end. They're already +1, they've got last shot. So Edin quite happy to just keep everything clear, not give Swiss the chance to start building points behind guards. And Swiss, of course, trying to do the opposite. So they will try to use that guard that's still in play. Or, no, they won't. So it looks like everybody has decided, looks like a blank end coming here. So everybody's a wee bit cautious of letting stones build up. And that just shows the respect that both teams have for each other, that they fully believe that if they leave any guards in play, the other team will make really nice shots around them. So everybody feeling a bit defensive this end. They don't want to leave cover out front that the other team could use. I think the rest of this end will be pretty quickly played out. There'll be nothing too complicated. Sweden would like this stone to hang around, just that Switzerland doesn't get a free practice draw, which it does. So I think we shall be exchanging hits for the next 3 stones. So no discussion even needed. Sven and Benoit Schwartz all ready to throw. So same thing, they're happy if that stone hangs around. They don't want to give Niklas Edin a free practice draw. They want to give him something to throw at. So you can see when even these big teams that are throwing a takeout, but they want their stone to hang around, we don't need to throw these huge weights anymore. The ice technology has really advanced, so we don't need to throw a screamer at these, and you can see that they throw that much more controlled weight to give the stone a chance to curl if needed and make sure that stone's hanging around. So, yep, no trouble for Benoit Schwartz. But with this last stone, Niklas Edin will not want his stone hanging around. So this one he will throw high. He will throw much heavier because he wants this red to roll out. So there you can see the difference. A much faster stone. He wants this stone now to roll out because Edin wants to keep last stone for the next end. So no trouble there. Everything out, blank end, as you were. So at this halfway point, we can just see a few of the teams. Some of them will be very recognizable, and then we've got some less experienced teams here as well. So even though some of our big names weren't able to travel, that's given us a chance to look at some younger teams, some less experienced teams. And I'm sure we'll be learning those names going forward as well. So Kjell has asked about the last shot draw before the game. So at the club, we decide who has last shot in the first end just by tossing a coin, because it doesn't make so much difference at club level, honestly. Now at this level, it does make a difference actually. It can be a big advantage to have the hammer, to have the last shot, even in that first end. So rather than tossing a coin and leaving it to the fates, what we do is we do a last shot draw. And so basically what that means is after a short practice, then one player from the team throws one shot towards the centre of the rings. And of the two teams playing, whichever team had a shot closer to the middle, they get the hammer they get last shot for the first end. So the answer to your question, Kjell, is that the teams do that after their previous game, if that makes sense. So for the first game, indeed, we do the last shot draw just before the first round, because there's no other time to have done it. But from then on, after the teams have played, once they've metaphorically shaken hands, since we're not actually shaking hands this weekend for health reasons, after the game is over, both the teams stay out on the ice for an extra 5 or 10 minutes, and both of them do their last shot draw at the end of the previous round. And then that's measured, and then that comes forward to the next round. So that's why we don't watch that before the game, is because it happened at the end of the previous round. So it's not a very dramatic one, actually. I think at the world and European and Asia Pac level, that does happen before each game. So it's a bit more exciting, because you can watch the two stones against each other, whereas here you do your own stone, that gets measured, and then you find out how your future opposition's stone went later on. So it's a less exciting way of doing it, but that's how it's done. So that's why we don't watch that before the game, is because it happened at the end of the previous round. Getting back to our featured game here. The clash of the titans between Edin from Sweden and Cruz from Switzerland. So Edin's team blanked that previous end, the fourth end, so that they could hang on to the last shot. So this is pretty much how the fourth end started. We had those two Swiss guards out front, and then the Swedes put one round to the middle immediately. So Benoit indicating play that front yellow onto the red. And if you can get all these yellow stones to stick, including the shooter, this should be a really nice shot. Needs to curl, but I think he's got it. Oh, he was a wee bit unlucky with where that yellow ended up. That just rolls further out than that red. That would have been pretty handy as well if that had stopped in front of the red. So Edin again having a think about what to do. I like the draw to the middle. They've got their winger as their insurance shot. So if they replace that red shot that the Cruises team just removed, yeah, roughly where Edin's holding his brush, that puts still pressure on the Swiss, and it's giving the Swedes a look at generating a 2 in this end. So while they're having a jibber jabber, we can see what's going on in the other games. It's a full house. There's 4 sheets in use. So the first game is Team Gempeler versus Team Iseli. Both of those teams in the same group as Edin and Cruz. So that's after 4 ends, that's 3-2 to Team Gempeler. Then we have Team Muskatewitz from Germany against Team Krause from Denmark. So the Muskatewitz team continuing their good run of form this weekend. After 4 ends, that's 3-0 to Muskatewitz. And our final game that's out there just now as well is Team Iseli from Switzerland against Team Schneider, also from Switzerland. And that's another tight affair. After 4 ends, that's 2 each. So I think Team Schwaller will be watching that final game we talked about, Team Iseli against Team Schneider. I think if Team Schneider win this, I think if I've understood the ranking correctly, I think they might put Team Schwaller out. So I think Team Schwaller is very interested in the result of that game. So a rare miss from Sweden, putting another centre guard out front, so Switzerland would love to take advantage of this now. If Switzerland can bury a nice stone behind there, then before Sweden score any, they will have to do something about it. They're all standing back from it. They maybe think it's running on a whistle. Yeah, so that's more like back 4 foot than front 4, so there is space for Sweden to follow that one in. Or these front guards aren't really helping them, they're mostly helping Switzerland, so it could be easier to just remove them. This is a bread and butter shot for Rasmus Brynna. Oh. Oh, he's got a little bonus roll in there behind the...
You guys want to cheat? Okay.
You guys want to cheat, says Peter de Cruz. He maybe thinks they have remote control stone out there. So you can see that there's a nice little bonus result there. They've got that red counter in the front ring. That shot would certainly accomplish 2 things at once, so it would remove that dangerous red in the front ring, and if you get the roll just right, you will protect that yellow in the 4 foot as well. So that's the decision indeed. Yellow onto red, so pick the red out, and then they want to roll their shooter yellow just to the inside as we're looking at it. So they certainly did get a roll. I think that yellow that's now in the front ring, I think that, from my angle, that looks like it outcounts the red. Edin's just having a look at it. Looks like they still want to try attacking that stone in the 4 foot. I think Switzerland will be quite happy with that result. It overcurled a wee bit. Again, just with that one sweeper trying to hold the line. So it rolled a wee bit further, but it found a nice spot. I think Switzerland's currently line 2. So to bring that red into play next to Niklas Edin's broom, they have to remove both of those yellows. So there we are, confirmation of the other games out there. I think everyone's in their 5th end. So yeah, some important games happening out there. Other teams watching these results as well to see what their fate is after the round robin.
Mycket bra.
So yeah, that looks mycket bra. That removed that centre guard, which wasn't really helping Sweden, and it removed that front yellow Swiss counter as well. So that looks a bit healthier for Sweden. Everything's a bit more open.
Right.
We've got 2 Swedish counters hanging around, although Switzerland are still closest to the middle there.
Genre, si t'es là en 3, c'est pas mal aussi. Hein.
Il va toujours réussir à l'enlever, je pense, mais...
On pourra toujours revenir derrière. Moi j'aime bien ça. Ça va? On veut être 3.
Okay.
Ok, ligne bien.
2,5, un peu court.
Balai pour 3.
Ouais, c'est...
Balai pour 3. Ligne parfaite. Balai pour 3, Ben.
Ah, c'est court.
Ouais, continue, continue. Curl, 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 fini, fini, fini. Fini. Yep, 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 yep. Oh. Okay.
So that didn't curl quite enough, that one. So
Ligga kvar mitt på linan eller lite
Sweden can see
vänster.
all of that yellow shot.
Är det 10?
Ouais, ce que je n'avais pas écouté, c'est qu'en fait, celle-ci, elle change rien pour
But if they do remove that shot, then Switzerland will still have that yellow guard just played by Sven Mikkel, so they can use that still. But they will certainly be mindful of these Swedish stones building up around the 12-foot red circle, as you can see there. So while we watch Oskar Eriksson play this, again, this gentle weight takeout, he wants this red stone to hang around as well. They want to have control of this stone with the sweeping.
Japp. Perfekt.
C'est de rouler là.
Mycket bra.
La rouge.
That's exactly what he wanted to do.
Et il a peut-être le...
So I'm just taking a look at the ranking list for Section B. So
J'aurais dit avec le out, Sven.
the Van Dorp team from Netherlands, they've had a great weekend. That team's really making strides the past year or two. They have won all their games, so they're sitting top of the table on 10 points, so they're guaranteed a place in the next round. And then, indeed, everything is pretty tight. So you have Team Schwaller and Team Retornaz from Italy. Both of those teams are on 6 points, and they've completed their round. So no more games for them. And indeed, Team Schneider and Team Iseli, that's the last game from Section B to play. So if Team Schneider win, they will go to 6 points, same as Team Schwaller and Team Retornaz. And then it will go to the direct points from who won the games between each other, if that makes sense. And then it will go to their average draw shot challenge. So things really tight in that B section. So yeah, I think Team Schwaller and Retornaz, they will certainly be keeping an eye on this score from Team Schneider and Team Iseli.
Oui.
Ja, jag tänkte att vi har dragit hela matchen i det spåret.
Ouais, fort pour la
Tänkte att-
toucher. Yep.
So again, just that one sweeper, not able to
Nu är
hold the line
frågan
as
då.
much as they would want. So now they're in a bit of a dangerous
Splittar den
situation.
här för att ligga
They
tre.
really wanted that yellow to hang
Kan inte
around.
dåligt med Chappa och den kommer ner bakom 10 eller något sånt där. Men
C'est quand même bizarre que ça arrive autant.
Sweden
splittar den
has
med
last
lite mer
shot
fart,
in this
så här,
end.
man bara trycker bort. Det ska vara om jag
So we really wanted to remove the red, but keep that yellow in play. Ideal would have been a little roll to the side behind cover, but he's rolled out completely. So now Sweden are going to try to make the most of this. So what they're looking at, I think, is to play on that front red and try and split it. So they'll come bumping up to it, push that red right in front there, a little bit further in, and then they will also spin in themselves. And if they get this just right, they could be lying 3 after this. So I think this is a very makeable shot, just like Oskar Eriksson is indicating. You just have to push it fully into that 12-foot red circle.
Ja. Och den,
Or that's the other option, is just to a direct draw in behind that guard. That's what we're looking at as well.
Försöka undvika att man tappar den typ ner dit liksom. De ligger en shot så försöka tappa den långt eller kort då, men
I think whatever they choose, then Schwartz is going to have a pretty tricky shot coming up here. to try and
Skulle
limit the
jag
damage a
helt gå
bit.
förbi känns som att de ändå bara måste fridra runt där. Då har vi ändå en tab för 2 förmodligen. Skulle jag helt missa den här så har vi ändå en dragning för 1 eller tab för 2 känns det som. Jag går för tredjedels träff med fart igenom typ.
So it looks like that's indeed what they're doing. They're going to play on that front red, which at the moment is third closest. So they're going to just try and punch that in just a little bit, just about a stone's worth, and roll in themselves. And ideally, they will lie 3 after this, and Benny Schwarz will have a tricky one. So Harvard Van Petersen has joined us in the chat. It's nice to see you. And he says, from a Norwegian perspective, almost all teams who intend on playing at the Europeans would currently have to be isolated for 10 days before the event. So I agree with you, Harvard, that's practically impossible. Yeah, as I said, like, I'm due to be playing there with the English ladies, and I don't think any of us can just stop our lives for a couple of weeks in advance. And I'm sure a lot of the other teams are in the same situation, so I'm not quite sure how that's going to play out.
Yep. Yep. Whoa! 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 Rent! Yep! Whoa! Whoa! Whoa!
It's pretty nice from Edin. He just wants to catch that edge, bump the stone
grip up,
already
grip
there.
up.
There it goes in and roll in themselves. Yep. Really nice result there. So just as we thought, oh, I think he's even in behind that cover, so he could hardly have placed that much better. So now Switzerland has a big headache.
Non, il voit un tir.
If they lose another big end here, they give themselves a big mountain to climb to stay in this competition. So really nicely done from Niklas Edin. You can see that both of those reds have protection, so the one on the left behind the guard and the one on the right, it's got the protection of that yellow behind it as well, so he couldn't have played that much better.
Même si joue parfait était là.
Yeah, everyone's looks like they may be wishing for a bit of a miracle here.
Si met 2, on arrête. Moi, c'est ça la question en fait. Alors on fait ça, je pense. Et on espère qu'il rate donc. C'est jamais.
That may be the best idea, if Schwarz can pull a stone in and sit right in front of that red in the 8 foot in the white circle. But that's also a risk if he gets that wrong. They're hitting for 4, so Sven suggests that, is there a double takeout to come at the counterclockwise handle to the red in the 8 foot and then spin across the house? So we can certainly see a good half of that red rock. There could be a double takeout. And that would certainly get them out of a lot of trouble if he makes it.
C'est possible. 8, trop prendre à mon avis. Je pense 8 c'est bien une grosse moitié.
I think they certainly can't afford to lose 4. And even a 3 might be
8 sur une grosse moitié, tu vas être
a bit of a
proche.
nail in the coffin. So for the sake of good curling, yeah, I would love to see this shot come off. If he
La
gets it
ligne.
perfectly, I think
Je joue 7, hein.
Switzerland might even lie short
Si
after
tu
this.
penses, t'as la place, ok. Il
So
faut
his hands
prendre
are
un peu
curling.
plus d'une moitié.
8,5, je pense que je roule.
Let's all wish Ben Schwarz good courage for this one.
Non, je dirais moins.
Ouais. Fort, Sven, fort, très fort, très fort.
Sven.
Allez!
Sven. Great sweep. I don't think he could have done much more with that, so hats off to you, Ben Schwarz. I think that was a great effort. I think he could only have made that any better if he just got the angle and poked out one of those reds, but of course they were in a heap of trouble, and that really was an excellent shot, so bravo Ben Schwarz.
Sätter jag den här lite dit och så den här på outen och hugger fast, då är det ganska lång väg.
Si on avait pu juste toucher la rouge
Ja,
d'abord,
så
un
snabbt
tout
som
petit peu,
möjligt.
on serait remonté un poil. On serait pile...
Jag tror den kommer gå ganska rakt där också, va? Jag har inte fått så mycket curl i mina nu, så det känns som ett par
Cool as
centi.
ever. He won't allow himself a smile yet.
Voler un peu, enfin,
So
il
I
va de toute
think
façon prendre l'extérieur.
Så nära
Sweden can
chapp som
certainly pick
möjligt.
up 2 here.
It's on the tee.
I'm not sure if
It's on
they
the
can
tee,
pick
huh?
up 3.
Oh, I thought it was on, yeah. At
yeah,
some point I
okay.
thought it was on, but...
Here, Peter de Cruz and Oscar Eriksson having a bit of a chat about what's going on as well. They all appreciate good shots.
Yep.
So let's see if Niklas Edin can match that with a great shot of his own.
Hårt! Ha.
Wow, so just the one in the end for
Je pensais pas que
Sweden.
ça
So
resterait ça là. Ouais.
hats off to you, Benoit Schwartz, for really
Ja, bra
saving
omgång,
the day
boys.
there.
Ça.
C'est 7-0.
Made it a very tough shot for Niklas Edin to spring out
Mais
the yellow far enough to sit 2. So great save from Switzerland. They will be pretty satisfied that that was only a 1 to Sweden. So Sweden still in the lead. After 5 ends, it's 4-2 to Team Edin from Sweden. But goodness me, that could have been a hatful. So I think Switzerland will be pretty relieved that they got away with only giving up a 1 in that end.
Arrête, s'il te plaît. Mais à part ça, c'était bien. Mais il a vraiment poussé en plus.
No lucky mode.
Il est... Ah oui, nose. Je pense qu'il fallait prendre
So I think if I needed someone to make a big shot to save my life, I think Benoit Schwartz would be pretty high on the list.
un peu plus de
Hänger
temps.
lite.
He's
Un
always
peu plus
nervous under
serré,
pressure.
chaud.
He's not afraid of taking on these really big shots.
J'ai changé avec Benoît. J'ai relâché psychologique.
And of course, top of my list would be my teammate Nigel to make a shot to save my life.
Demi.
So everybody take a deep breath after the
Ligne mer.
dramatics of the last stones of that end. Deep breath, back to some more gentle shots to set up the 6th end. So hello Brian Gray, who says miracle worker Benoit. I think most people would agree with you, yeah.
Lite tight kanske. Okej linje,
So
okej
hello to
linje.
Latvia. I'm
Okej
not sure
linje.
what. Are you in Latvia just now, Brian? And I'm not sure what Latvia's status is about
Ja, inne okej.
hurling or travelling at the moment.
Jag hänger lite just nu. Jag tar in den för hela då. Ja, curl också. Ja. Ja, bra. Det är bra. Fint.
So again, we've seen this set up for the first stones in the ends many times over this weekend.
Tu veux le faire dans quel sens? Ah, ok.
Switzerland do have last shot in this end, so that's why they threw up that corner guard. Their ideal shot here is the hit and roll behind that corner guard. So do 2 things at once, remove a Swedish counter and roll behind. So Peter de Cruz would be quite used to this shot. He normally plays second stones.
Wow. Nee.
So he didn't get the roll, but he did get the double. So that's removed the Swedish danger for now. But that also means, of course, that Sweden can hit them right back. So Brian, to answer your question, indeed, yes, Valentin had an injury after a fall in the ice yesterday, so hope it's not serious. So he's on the players' bench. He's watching this game, but not feeling fit to play.
Rent. Nästan vicken här. Med, japp. Täck lite grann och dra den nu. Ja då, det är bra. 11-1, bra.
Okej. Oh, c'est C'est impossible de rouler derrière, dedans. Hein?
Pardon?
C'est impossible de rouler dedans, derrière.
Tu veux rouler là?
So it looks like Ben was
Si on roule là, on n'est pas dans la maison?
signalling something similar. So remove that red, which is just touching the rings, so that's not protected by the free guard zone. And
Soit ça, soit venir derrière
a
la
short
jaune,
roll either to the left as we look at it to make a double guard, or towards the centre,
Ou bien
and you could
peut-être
maybe split it
derrière
or
la tille, derrière la rouge.
push it in later.
Venir, Ben.
Oh,
Genre
thank
derrière
you,
la rouge.
Brian. I wish I could hear your lovely dulcet tones as well.
9, 10, ouais. Juste pour essayer un peu.
It's good to know Brian Gray's there, so if I actually don't know something, then I shall quickly send him a text message and pretend I do.
C'est bien ça? Ouais.
Okay, so it looks like the Swiss are in fact going to use that red there as a
Ouais,
guard.
je pense que ça va curler un petit peu plus aussi.
So again, it doesn't matter to Switzerland what colour these guards are out front. Important is that they have guards out front.
Minimum.
So Peter de Cruz in his more habitual
pas mal.
role of
Attention.
throwing
Ligne, c'est bien.
stone number
Ligne bien,
3
ligne bien.
here.
Sven, reste
Oh.
devant. Attention.
C'est proche.
Ouais.
Ouais.
Wow. Ok, j'aime
Oh. Ligne parfaite.
Reste fort.
He's got plenty of line, but I think he's got plenty of weight as well. That's going to run on. So
Ouais, pour arriver-
nice line, but
Sacré bombe pour arriver là.
that's given Sweden the opportunity. They've got space to throw one in on top of that and cancel that
Skulle
stone
vi
out
dra en
already.
skotte här så lär de väl kanske frysa, men då har vi ju lite lättare.
Or again, Edin may say to himself, well, we're +2 already.
Deras hänger precis inte
He
åtta.
doesn't really want to start playing the aggressive tactic and
Känns den här isen?
leaving stones lying around. So the other possibility was to start removing those guards, but this is the aggressive call. They've pretty much got all the shots at their disposal, Team Edin, so they'll be confident of following this shot and just sitting on top of it.
Gärna curla. Gärna curla. Linjen kommer okej för frysen om den är ända
That's
ner.
pretty nice.
Fortsätt
They're
curla,
getting a good
fortsätt
sweep
curla,
though.
fortsätt curla. Kom igen, kant,
Looks like this one does need a bit of help with the weight.
Ja, bra sop,
Okay, so that's not quite up to that back yellow, so that
bra sop.
maybe gives Switzerland a bit of space to play with here.
Maintenant, j'aime assez bien le call de Benoît.
Yeah, important is after this shot, Switzerland want to have 2 counters
10.
in the rings. They don't need to be lying short
C'est
after
roulé
this.
là.
So Peter de Cruz is just indicating where he would want their yellow shooter to end up. So they want to remove that front red and then roll over to the other side with this yellow. So important that this yellow sticks.
9,5.
Oui. Wow, wow.
He's certainly got the red,
Ouais. Okay.
but he doesn't get the roll. So a bit of a half shot there from Switzerland. I think there's still
Vad är ni
space
inne
for
på nu?
Sweden to make a play on that red they
Något
just
sånt
threw,
här.
or yeah, they could put another one in ahead of T.
Ja.
And even with last shot, that's making Switzerland's life a little bit
Ja,
difficult
har vi
to
bra vinkel,
start
den är ju
getting
grym.
points
Annars
from
får vi
here.
försöka stanna lite kort om den inte har linje. Ja. Ja.
So another team powwow. I must say these teams are not bad for this. There are some teams who seem to have a committee meeting roughly every 3 stones. But I think these guys, both these teams, they know what they're doing, so
Nej, men riktigt defensivt skulle kunna vara att
Minimal.
klippa cornern.
team chatter needed.
Ja, fast då kan vi kanske slå någon och ligga 2 eller något sånt där. Det ska mycket till att de får 3 på det i alla fall. Ska göra splitten först också. Och då öppnar de upp
Fallait
den
quand
här
même beaucoup plus
också.
de glace, je pense. Enfin, beaucoup plus.
Nej, första tanken är att göra något offensivt. Men...
10 à 1. Vitesse parfaite.
So again, they know they want to
Ja, den är
play
inte dum faktiskt.
on that red. It's a matter of what to do. They could
Har vi inte linjen att tappa
punch
den
it
här
back a
loss
little
hit
bit.
någonstans och ligga där är okej.
What they don't want to do is leave a double
Ah, men
takeout
Timmer,
Je
for
pense que ça
Switzerland.
curler, ça...
So they're just discussing, they know they want to play on that red that they've just thrown, and they're discussing where they want both shots to end up, so the red already in the house and the red that's coming,
Känns isen.
such that
Det är
they
ungefär
don't
samma
leave
som rallet tror jag. Kommer inte ihåg exakt vad han
Switzerland,
hade.
who are also a strong hitting team. I know we always think of Team Edin as a strong hitting team, which they are, but you know, they've got some big hitters in De Cruz's team as well, so they don't want to leave De Cruz with an easy double.
Bra, japp. Bra linje. Bra linje. Limma dit
So
den.
similar weight coming
Risk
to last
överkör,
time.
Krippa håll i den linje. Håll den rak. Okej.
Looks like
Bra spel.
almost a freeze,
14,5 bra
but
så.
that's a nice result. I think they'll be fairly happy with that.
L'angle, il est un peu bizarre.
It's a wee bit hard to check from this angle, but I'm not sure there's a double takeout. Peter thinks there might be. I don't think you can see all of that front red.
Je crois l'angle, ça touche toujours ça.
Switzerland would love
Je
it
pense
if
ça,
they
c'est
could get a
peut-être
double
le
takeout, and then they could be lying
Ou
2
bien-
shots, but
Ou bien tu joues une
Yeah,
bombe et
let's
tu casses les deux, mais
come and have a look at the angles.
avec un peu de chance,
Använder då då. Men
très
skit i det.
fin, ça passe à côté. Mais je pense
So
ça
Sven Mikkel, also very experienced skip. He has also won this competition at skip actually,
Kan jag gå upp också om det skulle vara liksom
so definitely worth
om det bara
listening
är
to what he
fart som
thinks
gäller.
about
soit ça,
something.
soit tu joues une bombe, t'essaies
So
de
Team Mikkel won back-to-back actually in 2011
essayer de
and
l'amener là.
2012,
Nous on va
so
rouler de toute façon, hein. On n'arrive pas à
very
faire
handy
4-5e.
addition to the Peter de Cruz rink
Ça, pas trop
was
vite. Ou avec
Sven Mikkel.
11. Bon, tu joues sans balayage, mais... Essayez de garder ça, peut-être. Ok, ça marche.
You'll sometimes hear them speaking in English to each other. I think it sounds like Sven's
C'est là,
French
c'est
is
là.
getting better all the time, but Sven is from the German-speaking part of Switzerland, and the rest of De Cruz's team are from the French-speaking part. So handily, Peter de Cruz is also fluent in English. His father's from London, so occasionally you will hear them discussing in English if that's easier.
C'est vite, hein.
Oui! Wow! Non. C'est pas trop mal. Ok.
Oh, that was a bit unlucky to catch that back counter there. That risk was always there. That's exactly why Sweden were looking at those angles, because that's exactly
Är det
what they
så
wanted to
snabbt
happen.
som
So
möjligt va?
Sven,
Switzerland had to be so precise, so they were always going to
Yeah.
knock out their second counter. So now
Kom
Sweden
lite mer
can
Kölle, vad tror
go
du
ahead
här
and just
någonstans,
remove that
eller?
Swiss counter. And then again, Switzerland have a lot of work to do
il
to
a lâché, puis il
try
s'est levé,
to
alors, parce qu'il s'est presque retourné.
generate a 2 from this position.
Bon, c'est pas un drame. Hein. C'est pas facile de mettre deux, mais...
So again, that controlled weight from Oscar Eriksson. He doesn't need to throw a screamer at this.
Mer! Japp!
You can hear this yes, no for sweeping. That's typically a good sign. Very nice.
11-0. Fint.
So there are options still here for, exactly, there's options here for Switzerland. There is some cover to hide behind.
10,5-11.
We'll probably see a similar kind of weight from Sven Mikkel here, that controlled weight.
Je pense
So
qu'on veut même rouler
he wants to
loin.
move that red off the middle, but he also
10,5-11.
needs this yellow to hang around. They can't afford to have stones rolling out of play here, Peter de Cruz. So Brian asks, how is my French for
10,5,
listening into the teams?
Tiens, wow.
10,5.
Maybe a little bit better than I thought, actually.
Regarde, Ben.
But yeah, somewhat limited, I suppose, to très bien and
Ok. Oh.
place, which means we still have plenty of space for the stone.
Vicka tillbaka lite grann va? Eller ja, spelet. Gör en dubbel, då är det ju... bättre att ligga kvar där då. Den här, den blir så brant ändå.
I would say j'ai oublié mon français. I learned some French at school, but there's not too much left in there, I don't think.
Ja. Jag tror härifrån, en 10 så. Ja, lite mer förresten. Där är bra.
So that yellow did hang around, which was critical,
10
but it
chapp.
rolled the other
Helst
way.
inte vicka, det är risk att
And
han hamnar
now
precis
Niklas Edin
bakom 10 bakom
can
den här
easily
röda.
see it, so now he has the chance to do a hit and roll, get another Swedish counter behind cover.
Rent. Japp. Rent. Japp.
Again, that control play.
Rent.
Je mets les deux après.
He wants to move the yellow, but he wants to stick that red, so
Rester, c'est fin.
Ja, nice.
Switzerland are going to get another crack at this.
Pour rouler un
That
endroit
red's
qui
a
est
bit
bien,
further
comme ma shot.
forward, so his angle's not quite as nice.
Non, on s'achète, mais on sera juste. Bon, c'est un qui était chaud. Ah,
And this time it's Benoit Schwartz who
Ah,
will
c'est la
throw,
plus
so
dure,
Je pense que c'est
this will be
pareil.
his first of his
C'est-
two
c'est-
shots.
J'ai l'impression qu'il faut presque essayer quelque chose quoi, mais...
Båda blev biters.
Ça,
So the
c'est.
reason there's
Au
much
milieu,
discussion
on est là.
around this end
Ça, c'est tellement facile, je trouve.
Non, non,
at this point, and for teams at this level,
c'est facile, mais mon question.
Switzerland are not worried about
C'est
being able to
juste ça,
score
essayer de lui
something
donner
at
une
this
pierre un
end.
poil plus dur, quoi.
These guys are
C'est
very
vraiment
good
facile.
quality,
Hein?
so
C'est super facile. Peut-être qu'on aura un blank.
they won't be worried if they can score one at this end. At the moment, they definitely can. What they're thinking about and what they're discussing so much is how to try to set up 2 points.
Autant faire le double. Interne.
So if they just needed 1 point, then
Ah,
the strategy would be a lot more
Premier set.
straightforward.
Tiens, non, non, j'insiste.
Ok.
They would be quite happy to just keep the house clear, keep stones out of play, and either draw or hit for one at the end. So, and that's still true. So there are no centre guards. The house is pretty
Faut
open.
être presque complètement center line.
Ouais.
So to pick up 1 point here is well within their control. But the reason they're discussing so heavily all the different angles and so on is because they're really trying to make 2. So we'll have another nice shot to get us out of trouble here, Benoit.
Oui.
He's certainly given themselves the chance to blank this end and hold on to last shot now
Très dur de rester.
with that really clean double take out.
Ja, Ralles. Så den där tog vi direkt
Ça
också.
fait qu'on entre un carré entier comme ça.
Ja,
J'ai pris un gros tiers.
jag hade så på Ralles och så minskar vi lite på dig. Så.
C'était dur.
Très gros tiers.
So très bien, Benoit.
Ja, tror jag bra. Min första tanke var kant 4, det borde vara safe. Så.
C'était-
Ja, men det är bra.
Sweden,
C'est un
of
pic,
course,
là, ton
bra.
deuxième
do
numéro.
not want Switzerland to have a blank end here. They want to put a bit of pressure on. So
En halv fot utanför 4.
what Edin will do here is simply draw a stone in behind those guards, and then he will force Sweden. Sorry, he will force Switzerland to either outdraw him, or if he leaves any of it open, to make a hit. So the last thing Edin wants is that Benoit Schwartz can just throw his last stone away, that there's nothing in the house and he doesn't need to make a shot. So they're still going to put pressure on them. They would be quite happy if Sweden pick up 1 point, and then the score would be 4-3 with Sweden having last shot and only 2 ends left. So we're really getting to the business end of this game.
Ja, ja.
Das ist weg, ja. Det
Ja.
går ja.
Das ist weg.
Bra linje. Men aldrig i garden i alla fall.
100%.
Gärna curla lite. Gärna curla.
So a bit of a free practice draw for Niklas Edin here, just to make sure he's still got T-line weight.
Curla så mycket den får.
Aj, det är då.
Kommer rejält
Ça
nu.
gâche ça à la fin.
Wow. Räcker där. De har inte nollan nu.
Weight's really nice.
Trop, puis
I think they were maybe just trying to sweep that at the end there to try to make it curl a wee bit more, but I think that looks pretty well hidden there.
Bon, si tu fais le draw, one
I
down,
don't
tu
think
peux continuer, mais
Ben Schwartz will be able to see much of that. So he's got
on a de toute façon aucune chance de-
a couple of choices.
parce que lui,
If they really want the blank end, he can try to catch an edge of that red, depending on how much they
bah,
can
je pense
see.
qu'on fait de toute façon le draw, le pile, tu vois rien presque. Enfin, tu vois un tiers. je pense.
That feels like that's a bit too much of a
Ah, ouais.
risk. If you can really just see an edge of that red, that becomes a very risky shot. Then what he may do is just play the same shot that Niklas Edin has just played. Maybe take a little bit more ice so that his stone ends up closer to the centre though. That might be the safer shot. They really can't afford to go more points behind here. So they know they have to score one. It's simply a matter of how do they do that.
Ça curl déjà beaucoup, je trouve. Ok, Edin, c'est bien, Edin, c'est bien.
I think he's even ignoring the Swedish
Ça
stone.
curl pas mal. Hein.
He's backing himself to get
13-8.
T9
Je pense que c'est proche. Hein, quand même. Ah, c'est bien, c'est bien. c'est bien.
without any help.
Mr. Back button strikes again.
Best back button.
And my goodness, he does it.
Just throwing one foot
So
heavier without
you
one
can see
bounce.
why
Nice.
these teams are champions.
0 eller 2. 0 eller 2.
13-8.
He had not very much space there by Schwartz. He had to almost cover the hole with that shot. There were no stones to catch in case he
Raka först eller?
put a little bit too much running on his stone.
Kör boys.
And one more thing, we didn't really want to sweep it either, so a nice perfect
Marche.
line from Ben Schwartz to
Ça se marche.
steady the ship again. So that makes a big difference. The score's now 4-3 after 6 ends. Here's Edin just putting up the score. If that had missed, and
Eins.
like I said, Ben Schwartz did not have a lot of space to get that right, so if he'd been less than half a metre, either long or short, then the score would now be 5-2, and that would make a big difference. So never easy stealing shots against Edin, but the Swiss
pense que c'est
hanging
pas
in
mal,
this
mais-
game, they're giving themselves a
Un
chance,
petit moment qu'on n'a pas joué là, mais.
starting
juste ça
with the
passe, hein.
disadvantage of only 3 players and only 1 sweeper.
Très bien.
Ça curl un poil trop, je
So
pense.
they're really pulling out all the stops to keep themselves in this game and give themselves the chance to qualify for the quarter-final this evening.
Everyone's dream.
So same start as usual. That nice long guard from Peter de Cruz. A long guard's closest to the hog line.
Tellement stark.
That can get a little bit confusing because if a
Börja
stone is
curla nu.
long, then
Ja.
what we mean is that it's too heavy. But if a guard is
Bra
long,
linje.
what we mean
Bra
is that it's
linje.
actually further away from the rings.
Ja, det ser bra ut va?
So Sweden straight into the forfeit
bra.
there.
3 de ce côté-là.
Härligt.
If Switzerland want to score
Ouais, très bien.
a point this end, they will have to do something about that red shot eventually. But Ben Schwartz not worried about that just now. They want to make maximal use of the free guard zone where Edin's big hitting team can't yet remove those guards from play.
Ok, ligne assez bien.
Balai pour 3, hein. Balai pour 3, Sven.
Ligne assez bien.
I would say it's really thanks to teams like Niklas Edin and some of the big hitting Scottish teams that we now play the 5 rock free guard zone. So some of these top teams, they were getting so skilled
Tufft att gå den handen
at
eller?
removing 2 or 3 or even more stones
Elle a dit ciao.
after the 4 rock free guard zone,
La pierre a
but
dit ciao,
we
je
had to
reste
make
là.
it a bit tougher for them. So I would say this team for me at least stands out as really
Linjen ser bra ut.
bringing the game on in that way.
Kanske
You know,
behöver
that's
curla
compliment to
lite.
these big teams that
Yeah.
could do that, that
Mais,
could remove
Ça, c'était un peu
multiple
bizarre.
stones
Bra,
from the
c'est
free
passé.
guard
Linjen
zone.
kommer nu.
And we played
Fortfarande vid.
4 rock free guard zone, so it's really a compliment to those teams
Fortfarande
that
vid. Få in den på raggen
we
i
had
alla
to
fall.
change the rules to
Japp,
make it a
japp,
bit more
japp. Ja,
difficult.
gå nu, gå nu,
J'ai
gå
pas
nu.
compris, là.
Fint. Kom igen, kom igen. Halvjämn nu. Kom igen, kom igen, kom igen. Perfekt.
Great start from
13-9,
Sweden.
bra så.
Je pense que c'est difficile de le faire comme ça. Hein.
Bon, avec
It's a little bit like throwing the javelin in athletics, so every time the javelin threatens to get so long that it goes into the crowd at the other end, then they redesign the javelin and make it a bit heavier and that it won't fly so far. So yeah, every time the top teams in curling get so skilled at removing shots from the free guard zone, we need to make it a bit more difficult for them as well. I've certainly been on the end of that, so Nigel and I call that a Billy Morton, after the Scottish player who has been world champion, in fact, at playing second position, and he was extremely skilled at removing multiple stones from the free guard zone once it was finished. So that's fine from Switzerland. Again, it might not look so because Sweden are still line 2, but they've pushed 1 red behind the tee and they've got that yellow counter out front now with 2 reds behind it, so they've still got something to work with. That's the important criteria for them just now. Edin with last shot does not like the look of these corner guards, sorry, the centre guards, so he's got both of them moving and his shooter, so that's exactly what I was just talking about. That's how strong this team is. They can move multiple shots in one go, so that's why we needed an extra guard in the free guard zone. There we are. Gets everything moving, and for an encore gets his own stone rolling out as well. Swiss have a bit of a tough job here. They do want to score this end. They don't really want to let Sweden get any further ahead of them. They could afford to lose a 1, but any more than that would make life ever so difficult. So Swiss have a kind of dual task here. They want to keep an eye on Swedish counters, not let them build up. But they also would really quite like to score themselves, so they've got those 2 things to think about. Niklas Edin, he would be quite happy, I think, to have a blank end here, and then he would be +1 with hammer in the last end, and he would be feeling pretty good about that situation. And so other people have a name for being able to clear out multiple stones with 1 shot as well. Brian's team would call that a Billy Smart. So yeah, they can still do it, but they just have to wait a wee bit longer. And there's 1 extra stone in play. So I do think that's made a difference. We don't see so many blank ends at this level anymore. It used to be somewhat straightforward for these big teams to play a blank end because they were so skilled at removing multiple stones after the free guard zone was over. So at least this year, it's taking them a little while to figure out how to remove that extra guard with 1 shot. So this is the first game that we're following today. The stream, there's been a stream for each round, and there's always there's a fixed camera, so you can watch that, or this is the camera on sheet 2, which is following the game on sheet 2. So this is the first game that we've followed today, and we'll be following the quarterfinal, which is at 8:30 European time, and of course the semi-final and the final tomorrow. I nearly said the Halbfinale. That's how you would say it in German. So Oscar Eriksson, also very strong hitter. Oh, look at that. This is precision stuff. It's hard to overstate how well played these stones are, really. So the discussions these teams have at this level, it's just different to the discussions you have at club level, because club players, they're just not really consistent or strong enough to decide where their shooter is also going to end up. So I just saw Oskar Eriksson pick out that Swiss stone, just bumps his own Swedish counter and got his shooter to stay in the rings. So, and that's exactly what they were playing for as well. That wasn't lucky. Oh my goodness. So he was going for the double there. He just needed to catch the edge of that red in the forefoot, and then it would have spun out and taken them both out. So that might change Edin's decision making now. I think there are bound to be some tired arms and legs and brains out there. It's a very busy schedule. Some teams had 4 games yesterday. So it's tough to concentrate. It's tough to keep that level of consistency, which you need to beat a team Edin. So now Sweden could have a chance to make a multiple score here. So that's the other option. They're quite happy if they can get a blank end here and hang on to last stone, but they're already +1. So if they would have the opportunity to get maybe 2 points or even more, they won't mind giving up last shot. What a great shot that is. 2 fine shots from Oskar Eriksson. I think if you're ever practicing and you kind of place the shots for your opposition, who always play perfect curling, I don't think you could do much better than having Oskar Eriksson play as your opposition, as he seems to be playing in the land of perfect curling at the moment. So Swiss in a bit of trouble now. So that miss from the previous shot, that really switched up Sweden's thinking. So now Sweden see an opportunity for a multiple score, and because they're already +1, there's only one end coming after this, then this puts Switzerland in a bit of trouble. Sweden won't mind giving up last shot if they can put 2 or more on the board here. So every shot for the Swiss team is tough from here on. But Benoit Schwartz laughs in the face of difficult shots and puts up another really nice one to give Edin something to think about. I feel like this is a little bit like Roger Federer playing Rafael Nadal. If you're a tennis fan, that's the kind of the big match that everyone loves to watch in tennis, and this has a bit of a similar feel to it. I think both of these teams really push each other to deliver their best shots. So great effort from Schwartz there. He has left a little bit of space, and that's all Niklas Edin needs. You can see he's trying to play on that front red and poke out that back yellow. There is space to do it. And he has. Oi, oi, oi. So now Swiss are in a lot of trouble. They have one shot to try to sort this out. And I think even in Benoit Schwartz's bag of tricks, I'm not quite sure what he can really do about this. So it looks like he's going for something similar. He needs to get round that red stone in the 8 foot So I think he wants to end up just where Peter de Cruz's brush is. So he doesn't necessarily want to beat that red in the white rings. He just needs it to be safe, otherwise they're losing a hatful. Yeah, I think some smiles all round. I think everybody realises the importance of this shot. This is all or nothing now. So very much advantage Sweden at the moment.
Ligne pas mal. Ok.
C'est vite.
Ligne, c'est bien.
Prends, c'est vite.
Easy, easy, Sven.
Oh, Sven, attends.
Just such an important shot.
Ligne parfaite.
He has to get line and weight absolutely perfect, or I think they're probably not shaking hands, but fist bumping or elbow tapping, as we do in these COVID days. Great effort again. So it's definitely a little bit behind cover. So Niklas Edin has the same shot. He'll be pretty confident. He's just played this shot pretty much. And if that yellow goes, I don't think we shall need an eighth end on this sheet. I think that would be too many points for even mighty Peter de Cruz's team to get back. This is the kind of shot Edin loves. He's really, really good at them. He's sweeping it harder than the last one, but and he gets it. No trouble at all. So a big 4 for Sweden, after maybe initially thinking they were going for a blank, and we can see fist bumps all round. We're not doing handshakes for health reasons, of course.
I think it's beginner's luck.
So a strong win there for Edin. I think the Swiss team really did well to make a game of it with only 3 of them at this level. So this round goes to Edin. I'm sure these teams, their paths will cross again. Hopefully when Valentin Tanner is feeling fit, because I'm sure that makes a big difference in a busy schedule, and definitely at this level against such a strong team. So just to please Kiel, then we can stay here and watch their last stone draw. So this will count towards the next game they will play, which will be the quarter-final. So Edin is certainly qualified, and I guess these guys know the situation a little bit better than me. So Peter de Cruz is anyway going to throw a last shot draw.
Are you gonna? Oh, okay.
So either they've definitely qualified, or they throw a last shot draw and then cross their fingers a bit and depend on other results. So we can see the little banner there. The next game will be following as well. With commentary is the quarter-final, which is at 8:30 European time. So I think Elizabeth is also quite impressed with those 2 final shots from Niklas Edin. She says beginner's luck, which I presume is her being a bit of a joker. We really saw just how good you have to be to get a point off this Edin team. Look at that. And for an encore, I'm going to cover the hole. So at club level, the kind of shots that Benoit Schwartz was playing in that last end, I think they'd have been fairly safe, but not at this level. So John asks, what are the quarter-final games? I think it's not quite clear yet, John, but we'll be able to work that out for you shortly. There are 2 games still left out. So while they are carefully triangulating Niklas Edin's latest covering the hole, I can give you a final result. So Gempeler against Iseli. That was an 8-2 victory for Gempeler. There are 2 games still left playing. One is Muskatewitz, the German team, versus Krause from Denmark. And that is 5 each going into the 8th end. So pretty exciting stuff there. And the last game still playing in the round robin is Team Iseli and Team Schneider, both from Switzerland. And that is 6-5 to Schneider, also in their 8th end. So both of these games still out there are in their 8th end. They'll be wrapping up soon, and then we'll be able to tell you what the quarter-final lineup looks like. I can tell you that top of the table in Group B is Jaap van Dorp's team from Netherlands. That's an exciting new team to be watching. They've really been up and coming the past couple of years. And top of the table in Group A is Team Edin, after winning that game out there. So there's nothing else to watch on our featured sheet, but if we just hang on for a couple of more stones, then I can give you the final results from the other 2 games, and then we can confirm what the semi-final, oh sorry, the quarter-final lineup looks like. So I think that result that we were just watching, the Edin win there, I think that suits actually the German Muskatewitz outfit. So they were also on 8 points going into this game. So Team Edin is now on 10 points. Muskatewitz at worst will stay on 8 points. De Cruz is finished on 6 points. And the young Klossner team, who had that great win over Niklas Edin, they are also on 6 points, but I think in the head-to-head, De Cruz won, so I think De Cruz might just have squeezed through. So just for Kjell, we had a last shot draw, so thank you, Kjell. Hope you can join us for the quarter-final. So the Muskatewitz Krause game has concluded, but I didn't see which team actually got the win there. I think it's academic, to be honest, because the Muskatewitz team, they anyway had 8 points going into that round, and nobody could catch them after De Cruz was the only team that could catch them. So I think Muskatewitz is anyway qualified, and Krause with 2 points. They were not able to qualify, so they were one of those teams that can make life very difficult for the other teams. It's always worth playing right up to the end. So I think our qualifiers from Section A looks like first place Edin, second place Muskatewitz, and third place De Cruz. And I'm going to flip to Section B. So first place is clear. That's Jaap van Dorp from Netherlands. And I'm not sure who picked up points in our final game out there, Schneider versus Iseli, but it looks like they're going for our favourite extra end. So we may have a wee bit longer to confirm who are the other qualifiers from Group B. Currently second place is Schwaller and third place is Retornaz, both of them on 6 points. And if Schneider wins here, they will also go to 6 points. Well, thank you, Michaela. Thank you for joining us. Yes, we will be watching the quarterfinal all together in a couple of hours. Everybody can go and have something to eat or take the dog for a walk and then come back in a couple of hours. And then we'll be back first thing tomorrow morning for the semi-finals and then the final So there's plenty of good curling still coming. So indeed the Iseli Schneider game has gone to an extra end. So Team Iseli, they've had a tough time of it this weekend. They're a younger team, but great to see them here. They've had some tough games out there against Yannick Schwaller and Retornaz. So I hope they've enjoyed their weekend. They've certainly made it a good competition. And I'm sure they'll be looking to finish with a win. They've had a lot of tough games already. And of course they're really pushing it to the end. But it looks like if Schneider ends up winning this extra end, I think the quarter-final qualification will be decided by the draw shot challenge. So the three teams in contention would be Schneider from Switzerland, Schwaller from Switzerland, champions from last year, and Retornaz from Italy. And all three of them have beaten each other once, which means the head-to-head record is the same. So we would then go to the draw shot challenge, and I'm not sure what that looks like. Firstly, because at this level the draw shot challenge is always really good, and also because I don't know what the measurements were for this round. So we'll need to wait and confirm that. But that's the situation. So keep eyes peeled on the website for the quarterfinal lineup, and I hope you can join us in a couple of hours. So bye for now.